All right, let's talk about some of the biggest game changers in chemistry. But we're not talking about the ones that were planned for years. Nope. We're diving into the breakthroughs that happened completely by accident, the incredible stories of when things went wonderfully, beautifully wrong.
So, when you think about science, what do you picture? Probably a super clean lab, right? White coats, clipboards, a very clear plan from A to B. But is that how it really works? Well, if you look at the history of chemistry, you'll find it's a much messier and, frankly, way more exciting story.
You see, it turns out that one of the most powerful forces for innovation isn't a meticulous plan. It's something a lot more chaotic. It's pure random chance. Or, to put it more elegantly, serendipity, the happy accident.
Yeah, you heard that right. Some of the most important materials that we use every single day weren't the result of some brilliant focus project. They were born from spills, from contamination, from experiments that totally, completely failed. And here's the key thing about serendipity. It isn't just about making a mistake, it's about making a beneficial mistake. It's about that incredible moment when you're looking for one thing and you accidentally stumble onto something even more amazing. And the world of chemistry is just full of these stories. Okay, so let's get to the really good stuff. I'm going to walk you through 3 of the most incredible stories where a simple mistake, a total screw-up, ended up completely reshaping our world.
And we have to start with the legend, right? Penicillin. The story kicks off in 1928, all thanks to a scientist who was, let's be honest, a little bit messy, and a contaminated petri dish. What started out as a total lab failure became the very foundation of modern medicine, saving literally hundreds of millions of lives.
Okay, so let's break this down, because it's amazing. The scientist Alexander Fleming, he gets back from vacation and finds that one of his bacteria samples has mold growing in it. Now, most people would have just sighed, said a few choice words, and tossed it in the trash. But Fleming, he looked closer. He noticed this weird clear ring around the mold, this halo, where the bacteria just couldn't grow. And that's when the light bulb went on. He realized the mold itself was making something that killed bacteria. And that something, of course, was penicillin.
All right, next up, vulcanized rubber. We're going to jump back to 1839. A guy named Charles Goodyear was desperately trying to make natural rubber useful. Then one clumsy move involving a hot stove changed everything. And in doing so, it literally paved the way for the entire modern auto industry.
So why was this such a big deal? Well, because before this accident, natural rubber was basically useless. I mean, it would melt into a sticky, gooey mess in the summer, then freeze into a brittle rock in the winter. But after Goodyear accidentally dropped a mix of rubber and sulfur onto that hot stove, he found the material it created was totally different. It was strong, it was elastic, and it stayed that way no matter the weather. He had accidentally discovered vulcanization, creating the tough, reliable material we use in everything from tires to sneakers.
And that brings us to our third story, the invention of Teflon. This one starts in 1938 with what seemed like a complete bust, a cylinder of gas that was supposed to be full but for some reason seemed to be empty. Little did they know what was left inside would become one of the most important materials of the 20th century.
So get this, a scientist named Roy Plunkett is trying to create a new refrigerant. He grabs a cylinder of gas, opens the valve, and nothing comes out. Zero. Now, he could have just chalked it up as a loss, but instead, he got curious. He actually sawed the canister open, and inside he didn't find gas, he found this bizarre white, waxy powder. The gas had spontaneously transformed itself into a new solid with incredible properties. It was unbelievably slippery and resistant to pretty much every chemical known to man. They had accidentally created Teflon.
So, we've heard these incredible stories of luck, but that brings up a really important question. Was it all just luck? The answer is a clear no. Because, you see, a mistake is just a mistake until the right person sees it.
And this, right here, is the key to this whole thing. The accident just opens a door. It takes a curious human mind to actually walk through it and turn it into a discovery. Without that little spark of curiosity, all these revolutionary materials would have just been swept into the dustbin of history.
That's the common thread that connects Fleming, Goodyear, and Plunkett. They didn't just see a contaminated dish, or a burnt mess, or an empty cylinder. They saw an anomaly, something weird that shouldn't have happened. And instead of getting frustrated, they got curious. They stopped and asked why. They refused to just write it off as a failure, and instead found a revolutionary new purpose hiding inside it.
And the impact of asking that simple question, why, it's almost impossible to overstate. These accidental discoveries didn't just give us a few new products, they created entire industries and completely reshaped our society.
I mean, just look at how it all breaks down. The medicine in our hospitals? Thank penicillin. The tires on our cars? That's vulcanized rubber. The eggs that slide right out of your frying pan? You can thank Teflon for that. And we didn't even have time to cover superglue, which started as a failed attempt to make a gun sight, or artificial sweeteners, discovered because a chemist didn't wash his hands before lunch. These accidents touch every single part of our modern lives.
So what all this really shows us is that science isn't some one-way street where we just tell nature what to do. It's more like a conversation. We set up an experiment, we ask a question, and sometimes matter answers back in a way we never, ever could have predicted. The real genius is being able to listen.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought to end on. Right now, at this very second, in some lab somewhere in the world, something is going wrong. An experiment is failing. A sample is contaminated. A result makes no sense. And maybe, just maybe, hiding inside that mistake is the next penicillin, the next Teflon, the next world-changing revolution, just waiting for someone with a prepared mind who's curious enough to see it.